Recording in progress.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Greenbelt City Council to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Good evening. Ms. McKinney?
Here.
Ms. Pompey? Pope is absent. Ms. Niesel?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Ms. Weaver?
Here.
Mayor Jordan?
Here. Let's pause for a moment of silent reflection, thinking about several residents and former residents that have passed away since the last meeting. Residents Linda Edwards, Marie Christie, Alana Rawl, and Aphrodite Matsakis. Let's just pause in silent reflection. Thank you. Mr. Roberts, would you like to lead us in the pledge? Thank you very much. Just quickly, today is Earth Day. Back in 1970, 20 million Americans from all walks of life came together to acknowledge the Earth. That initial gathering resulted more or less in Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and just heightened everyone's awareness about the environment. This is the 55th anniversary of Earth Day. So 2024, the earthday.org is putting a special emphasis on plastics, ending plastics for the sake of humanitarian and planetary health. And they've set a goal of a 60% reduction in all production of plastics in 2024. So it is Earth Day. And also it is Passover. So I'd like to wish everyone a kosher and joyous Passover. So at this time, we need to go to petitions and requests, which is a section of the agenda where our residents and others can make a statement, ask a question of the administration or council. We note these petitions and requests, the city clerk, and we respond. We don't respond on the spot. We need time sometimes to do research or to come up with an answer. So at this time, let me go ahead and ask the question, are there any petitions or requests? Yes, please. Mary Johnson.
Make sure it's on this time. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I believe you have a copy of the City Code, Section 13-31B. Benita handed it out for you at my request. And I'm just going to read Section B of that City Code. The classification plan and revisions thereto shall be approved by motion of council, provided that such approval shall not be made at the same meeting at which the recommendation of the city manager to council is presented, except with the consent of 4 members of council. Any employee who shall hold a position in a class for which the city manager shall recommend a revision, or a position for which the city manager shall recommend a change in classification, shall be notified of the recommendations to be made prior to their submissions to the city council. So my first question is, and this is the 3rd time I've asked it, when did council approve the revisions to the city manager's office that resulted in the elimination of a position which occurred on March 21st, 2024?
I'm not going to answer. corporate, our municipal counsel is here. He will follow up, but, we have a legal responsibility to protect the interests of the city, so as
And I
mayor,
feel it's
I'm
a
not going to.
procedural issue. I figure it's a violation of city code.
So I would rather hear the petition out. What is council's will? Mr. Roberts would like to
Yeah,
speak.
is there more to your petition?
Yes. Okay, secondly, as stated in city code, the employee is to be notified that this will happen before though it's going to be proposed. Was the said terminated employee notified? And I know the answer to that, no, she wasn't. She came into work March 21st, went into her office, and the HR director was in the adjoining office and came out and told her to pack her stuff and walked her out of the building. So that, again, is against city code. And additionally, the said terminated employee is eligible for a 30-year normal service retirement in September of 2024. This employee informed me today that after generating an estimate for early retirement, which would be July 1st, 2024, on the Maryland State Retirement website, she stands to miss out on 9 years of retirement benefits since she would have to wait till age 62, that's May 2033, that's 9 years, to receive benefits. This loss to her is over $400,000. And this is an employee that the city manager himself said was a good employee. She was here 29 and a half years. So
I want you to know that I was not in favor of that action.
thank you.
And I am not in favor, and I think it needs to be reversed.
Well, thank you very much.
But, so you have one vote on city council because you're right, we did not vote to do that. And I knew that it was a council, that is a policy issue, not a city manager issue.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I
So-
appreciate that.
So thank you for following up on this.
Sure. No, I would continue to.
Because
Thank you.
I
very
think
much.
it's important for all of our employees,
Well,
not
it
just
is.
one.
The employees are afraid. I've had them stop I've been retired 3 years, and they come by my house and say they're getting rid of all the old timers. They're afraid. So you created a hostile environment for them. So it's not the city that I worked at. So I've been a citizen for 27 years, and I wanted to get back to the city I worked at. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would expect the administration to respond and to respond.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other petitions or requests? Hearing none.
We've got one.
Oh, we've got one online.
There's one in the room.
Oh, okay, please.
Happy Earth Day to everyone. My name is Renaud Brown, former resident, currently reside in Baltimore City. And I just want to, my mom passed away. It's been a little over a year now. And I just wanted to, since Chief Bowers is here, want to give a thank you to your department. At least 3 or 4 times, the department had to come and get to my mom, and unfortunately, the last time they got to her it was too late. I've lived in the city for 25 years, so my mom's lived here much longer, and that's why I continue to keep a vested interest in this city, great city, and also am still involved with Prince George's Peace and Justice in the city. So wanted to personally come out tonight and thank you, Chief, and thank you, the department, for their service. And as well as if Dr. Parks is online. I know my mom talked about CARES as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any other petitions or requests? Okay, hearing none, we need to move to the next section of the agenda. Consent agenda. Are there any modifications to the consent agenda? And if there are none, could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem has seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. And with the agenda, are there any modifications to the agenda?
I'd like to move the agenda item, which is number 14, the DEI report recommendations and action plan, up in the agenda if possible. I know that there are some community members that are interested in hearing that, and that's a little bit later in the evening.
Where would you like to move it?
After presentations?
That would be great.
Okay.
So after 7B?
So that'd be 7C. Okay, could I please have a motion to adopt the agenda as modified?
Adopt the agenda as modified.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Pompey is seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So tonight is, we're going to adjourn the council meeting to hold a public hearing. So let's see if I'm going to do this correctly. I hereby convene actually, I need to adjourn the council meeting temporarily. I make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. So I hereby call a public hearing on the FY 2025 proposed budget to order. Let me open up by saying on March 25th, 2024, the city manager presented the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025 to the city council. Since then, the council has held 4 work sessions to review the budget and another 5 scheduled in the coming weeks. The proposed budget is available online at greenbeltmd.gov, including the agenda, materials, and recordings of the budget sessions that have taken place so far. The budget is scheduled to be adopted at the regular city council meeting on June 3rd, 2024. The city code requires that a public hearing be held on the budget prior to its adoption. Today's public hearing is the first of 2 that have been scheduled. The second public hearing will be held on Tuesday, May 28th, 2024, after the budget work sessions are completed. It's recommended that we actually hold this public hearing now. So since we've already convened the public hearing, I'm just wondering if there are any individuals that would like to speak on the subject of the 2024-2025 budget. Let me check to see if there's anyone online.
No one has their hand raised.
No one's online with their hand raised. Let's give it a few more seconds. It's that Jeopardy theme music. Okay, well, if there are no comments at this time, I was wondering, City Manager, do you have any thoughts about the budget?
I was prepared to do a brief overview, Mr. Mayor. This budget was challenging to close, as council has been informed previously, and it's been reported by the paper that we started with a significant deficit. Initially, we had started to be a $2.6 million deficit, became a $3 million deficit that we needed to close, which we successfully did, but it comes at expense of a lot of activities, cost reductions that we needed to do. But we were successful, and we're successful while sustaining funding for the full implementation of the comp study that was conducted previous years and went into effect in 2024, so that full cost of the compensation study carries in full effect into the fiscal year 2025. This budget, while balanced, also includes supporting a 2% cost of living adjustment to all employees, a 3% merit increase. We thought it was important to keep up with compensation study and market conditions. It funds significant capital projects and building capital reserves. We work with the constrained fiscal conditions, that being reductions in real estate revenue and the closing of ARPA funding. Our proposed budget reflects council's vision and goals, maintains high level of service delivery, public safety, and recreational amenities to our residents. This balanced budget includes taking on previously funded ARPA positions and now are part of our operational budget. Those positions mainly being the crisis intervention position and a CARES position.
Thank you very much. So it's a difficult year, and kind of coming out of the pandemic, working towards the expenditure of all our ARPA funding, and also with so much uncertainty in the economy, the local economy. I'm very concerned, and I applaud the fact that we've been fairly conservative in what you've put forward, but I'm very concerned about revenues, both within the city and just in terms of the commercial tax base. So we'll continue to work through the various parts of the budget, and we'll come up with something. So thank you for framing the budget process and some of the thinking that went into coming up with the budget this year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we share your concerns as well. We're seeing some businesses recently closed. TJ Maxx, Chevy's have closed, and we're concerned about what that means for property taxes, and we're concerned about more applications for property tax abatements.
Comments from council? Well, hearing none, I'd like to close this public hearing. Oh, there's a comment?
There's a hand up now online.
Okay, let's promote that individual.
Kathy Scott.
Ms. Scott, are you there? Okay. I don't think that's a legitimate, yeah.
That doesn't sound like actually someone making a comment.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to bring the public hearing to a close and make a motion that we reconvene the council meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does carry. Thank you. So next up on the agenda, we've got a presentation from the Maryland Coalition for Responsible Transit. And Susan McCutcheon, who is a representative of the Maryland Coalition for Responsible Transit, or MCAT, is here to provide a report on an update to their efforts being made to the status of the Northeast Maglev train proposal. Ms. McCutcheon, welcome. If you could go up to the podium. I believe you have some slides as well. The city clerk will kind of work with the slides.
Do I
Welcome.
have to press anything, or no, it's on? Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Susan McCutcheon. I'm one of the board members of the Maryland Coalition for Responsible Transit. We have been very active, and I think some of you have probably already received our 2023 annual report, and you can see all of the things that we have been doing. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, but then again, Northeast Maglev is working behind the scenes. So our update is, first of all, calling back to December of last year. On December 27th, 2023, Baltimore Washington Rapid Rail, or BWRR, withdrew its application to the Maryland Department of the Environment, or MDE, for Tier 2 Water Quality Certification. It's called WQC, the acronym, for the SC Maglev train project, indicating they, quote, intend to reapply when the project documents are detailed enough to address MDE's comments, which doesn't very bode well when you can't support what you're putting out there, I think. The Maryland Coalition for Responsible Transit and many other groups, including in Greenbelt and individuals, weighed in to oppose granting the WQC during the MDE comment period, which, by the way, was extended through the MCRT's successful write-in campaign. And we thank all the supporters in Greenbelt because a lot of people supported us in that. The MCRT testified at the 2024 Senate and House hearings to support the cross-filed bill's state finance prohibited appropriations magnetic levitation transportation system. The MCRT successfully undertook extensive campaigns to educate residents about these bills and encouraged them to give their input by providing information about how to testify or submit written comments or both. And we had Mayor Jordan is one of the individuals who did testify in person, which was really great. The legislators love to see, first of all, they love to see elected officials, but they also love to see them in person. Unfortunately, these bills were not voted out of the Senate and House committees. This is the maybe third or fourth time that they've come around, despite thoughtful and probing discussion by their members, which was it was heightened this year. It was more unusual. The very serious questions and deliberations I thought were much more thoughtful. But the sponsors will file them again in 2025, perhaps modified with language more targeted to this specific project, which is an objection that has come up. And the sponsors were Delegate Nicole Williams and Senator Alonzo Washington. The MCRT will again, of course, support those bills. Baltimore-Washington Rapid Rail, or BWRR, is actively seeking additional funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, funds, and perhaps other grant sources to continue to tap into federal taxpayer funds. The MCRT is asking our legislators to monitor the plans of current Governor Wes Moore and his administration are developing for the allocation of these IIJA funds to ensure they adhere to U.S. DOT guidance in ways beneficial to Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County, Baltimore City, and the state of Maryland. We also ask them to keep their constituents and constituent groups apprised of incipient plans to spend IIJ funds so that we can continue to advocate for solutions to improve public transportation and transit with minimum negative impact on the communities in which we live. And I should say that the money from BWRR, the federal funds are exhausted, so that's why there is a special push to try to get some source of funding. Now, what is Northeast Maglev doing? Let us see. Northeast Maglev is pushing forward as though the building of the SC Maglev is a fait accompli with a Baltimore-focused campaign promoted through the Bi-County Business Roundtable and Maryland Business Matters electronic newsletters, promising $4 billion in contracting opportunities in construction, engineering, station and facilities, and maintenance, specifically for minority and women-owned businesses, and encouraging those businesses to become, quote, part of this transformative process. As part of their efforts, Northeast Maglev will host an MBE and WBE resource breakfast on May 23rd at Coppin State University in Baltimore. Quote, to hear from experts in MBE/WBE engagement and bonding about how regional businesses need to prepare to successfully bid, win contracts, and grow. Now, MBE and WBE is the Minority and Women's Business Enterprise Program, in this case, Baltimore County. They are helping these businesses get ready to compete for SC Maglev contracts, apparently, because that's certainly what it sounds like. The MCRT will put out a news alert ASAP to respond, and I'm guessing in a week or so, to respond to the above described Northeast Maglev campaign, to inform our broad-based audience, including elected officials and reporters, that the SC Maglev has run into many obstacles and their future is far from assured, even though they're taking a very positive, strong stance that we are going to have this project and we want you to bid as contractor. And finally, the MCRT will soon resume our education tables in Greenbelt and at other events. Our presence has been noted. There are 2 or 3 individuals who work with the towns who advise about political activities, et cetera, and they have noted our tables, our information tables at various events in Greenbelt and elsewhere. As you see, the proposed SC Maglev project is alive and well, despite being on pause, and we cannot afford to sit back and wait for official future actions such as BWRR submitting permitting applications, because that's the kind of thing they're trying to do to move things along, and the next Federal Railroad Administration action, which we really don't know much about, but we anticipate it we'll suddenly hear about an environmental impact statement of some kind. We just don't know when. And so what was submitted shows you the ads. You can see right here. $4 billion and this transformative project, world-class safety and performance, reduced traffic congestion, improved air quality, et cetera. But then if you scroll further, you see the other one that is about the WBE resource breakfast. And it surely sounds to me, if I were a contractor, that, hey, this is a project, let me go and learn how to apply for it. So even though they don't say, they schmooze around it, if you will, they want you to hear from experts in MBE and WBE engagement and bonding about how regional businesses need to prepare to successfully bid, write contracts, and grow, all with the inference, of course, that it's this project that they would eventually be applying for. And that's
Yeah, thank you, Ms. McCutcheon. That's deeply disturbing. It seems outright misleading and deceitful, this idea that they are ready to begin accepting bids from contractors for work on this project that doesn't even have an environmental impact statement that's been finalized or approved.
And they're not saying it is approved or it isn't approved, but the way they're presenting it, it's like, hey, we're ready to go. Now we're preparing you for how you can go for contracts. And that in itself is that fuzzy area where we have to be very concerned, because sometimes momentum grows in a way, and especially they're focusing, we believe, Baltimore because of the Westport issue, the Westport development, and they feel that that is an area that is really ripe for people to be pulled in and get involved. And I think they feel their momentum. Well, I'll put it this way. Greenbelt is a force that is fighting them. Greenbelt and the other communities in this way. But they think they're looking at what they might see as and you haven't heard as much from Baltimore. You've heard some. But I think they're trying to they're trying to tackle the Baltimore end to get the momentum up to support the project and run counter to what we are putting out there about it. So
Let me ask a couple of questions. One, you just mentioned Westport. So there was a community development corporation up there, and I believe they'd filed suit against Northeast Maglev about the disposition of the property there. Was that settled, or is it still in consideration?
they came to a settlement. In the
What the
end, they
settlement
came
was?
to a settlement with BWRR that they would still build the property, and that the train, I think, will run like next to it or something like that. So they did come to, and they're working apace on that too. They're working on it. I've seen 2 or 3 articles about that, that they're starting to look at the actual development and what they're going to do. But they're working hand in hand now, apparently, with an agreement that both can exist at the same time. But there is still a Baltimore contingent that is opposed, but they seem to be readjusting to see how can they continue to show their opposition, because there's been a lot of lobbying, and there have been a lot of very specific actions to try to be out in the Baltimore community, giving away computers, being at STEM activities or STEAM activities, and being out there distributing food, et cetera, that kind of thing, so that, we're part of this community, and, we're going to educate your children and do those kinds of things. So they're promoting a lot of goodwill. But I would say that one need be concerned that the people who are seeing what they're hearing is not the other side of the issue or any other side of the issue. And I believe that we're working with the opposition movement, I should say, is part of our organization. And we are working with them to try to figure out what we can do to bring more information to Baltimore residents about other aspects that they're not being shown.
I was at a conference in March, and it was the National League of Cities. And I was talking with a representative from the FRA, the Federal Railway Administration, and I was asking about the environmental impact statement. And he was saying that, in his opinion, in order for that to move forward, there would have to be some support or engagement from the state of Maryland. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer for sure to that, sir, but I assume so. There would have to be something that, there would be a movement behind it of an important enough.
The state would have to move it forward.
Right.
That's essentially what he said.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised because they want, there, that would be an influence on it. And I would say that we don't really know, we have outlines of what Governor Moore thinks, but we don't really know what he thinks about it. And the other aspect is too, of course, with the Key Bridge and other issues, it's hard to imagine that transportation funds from Maryland would go for, at this point at least, a project like this, when considering they have to rebuilding the bridge and other things like what are they going to do with to finish different projects or even resume projects in Baltimore, because the call out in Baltimore in general, if you look at it, is not for the maglev being a transportation system. It's for bus routes, it's for light rail, it's for metro. It's not for another project, some project such as this.
Hey, I should have asked you to there's some other representatives or other members, folks who were involved with MCAT here in the room and also who were not in the room. Can you just give us a real quick overview or introduce the folks that are here?
Sure. Kathy Bartolomeo is with MCRT, and we have, and you should stand up too. You're a supporter of. You're not on the board. Yeah, so you have to stand up, and definitely. And who else do we have? Anyone else here? And oh, of course, Jay, part of our strategy group folks. Of course, Jay, you know her, right? She's
Just a little. Just a little.
She's been around a little bit, and maybe ask it. Jay, you want to say something, or Kathy? Make any comment, maybe, and you can, and Conrad, if there's anything more you'd like to add.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Roberts,
Okay,
please.
I'm sorry.
I'm wondering what's going on down in DC, because I think that's probably one of the most important places because they want all that free government land up in Bark and along the way. So I see that as the really big thing. Are they going to be able to bribe the people? And I mean, essentially, that's what they're doing in Baltimore because the senators and everyone kind of gravitate towards Baltimore. So they're trying to, they're just spending money up there and, making friends. So are they doing the same in DC with the federal officials?
DC, I will say from over years, and we've talked about this a lot, is a really hard nut to crack. I know Mayor Jordan knows some people there. We did do a tabling event last year in DC to try to get information out. We regularly send information, like our newsletters, et cetera, to the DC Council. I send a DC Council to you, to like everybody and his brother, and the Senate and House committees and everything else. It's really kind of hard too. It's similar to Baltimore in a way. People are only like semi-engaged, but probably less engaged in a cohesive way than even in Baltimore. We've been working on that. Maybe you have any more insights on what you could say about that, because it's just been really hard to do it. We keep reaching out and
Well, I'm saying what is the maglev people doing down there?
I have
mean, is
not
that-
really heard, except sometimes showing up at distributing food or something like that. But we haven't heard a lot of DC action. I think they probably, and I will get myself in trouble. I think it's kind of, well, there's this little environmental justice committee over there, and well, we're not gonna bother much about them. The people who are arguing are like port towns, et cetera, environmental justice communities going to Greenbelt, et cetera. And I don't believe they're probably paying much attention, because I think they feel that the ripe area is Baltimore, more so than DC, to try to get people together, because in some ways there is need, but there's a more obvious need because in Baltimore for for various things with education, et cetera,
Yes,
transportation, that sort of thing. I believe they sort of dismiss DC and assume they have that, but maybe they assume they have the legislators. It's all speculation. I really don't know.
Has the issue come up in the Senate race at all?
I haven't seen it,
No, no
no.
one's saying anything.
'Cause I haven't heard anything
No.
No
about it
one's
or
saying
anything.
anything.
No, I do know that, I know that Angela also Brooks, when she was campaigning, was very much talking about this issue. I believe she's still opposed, but because I think I think where everyone is, they're really kind of not saying and straddling the fence about it because of various reasons, just politics too. So, okay.
Thank you.
Jay- Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Mhm.
Something to add?
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. First of all, I want to thank Susan and Kathy and all of the members of MCRT. There's a core group of people who meet once a month and then they meet in between. And they have been continuing to think up ideas and strategies and write letters and do the fight. And even though I think many people think that the whole issue has died and gone away. So this is why I'm glad that they showed up tonight to give their presentation, because it has not gone away. And that the fact that the maglev people are still working their magic, supposedly, trying to drum up support. So I also want to thank Jill Grant and the Greenbelt City Council for working with MCRT, and I believe also the University of Maryland, their legal department. Right. So everyone is doing their best, and we just have to make sure that we can maintain the pressure, because we can't let this all of a sudden slide away and then they sneak in and do something. And I'm sure the MCRT people are keeping their ears to the ground. So in the meantime, anyone who wants to join MCRT on their Wednesdays, it's on their website, I believe, that they can join in on the Zoom meetings. And I'm sure they would welcome any city council people to come to their meetings as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the update. Mr. Hurling? Yeah.
Thank you. You know, at the first time that this was presented, it was to the Prince George's County Municipal Association. And I remember one of the things that they were not responding in terms of the questions to was how much would it cost? And then since that initial period, what we have found out is they're talking about $60, if not more, per trip. So you're talking about $120 if you're going round trip. So in terms of the market of people that they would appeal to, it's fairly limited. It is not for the masses of the Baltimore, Washington area. And the other thing that I wanted to mention regarding this, besides the cost, is that the Secretary of Transportation has spoken in support of improving the MARC train, not supporting maglev, although I'm not saying that he's not thinking about that as well, but at least he has talked about that. And we've got the MARC, it's already there. We need to build its clientele and so forth. That's where the effort should go. And I just want to just really say fantastic efforts by Kathy and Susan and the entire group, because it has been a tireless effort, and now even more energy will have to be applied. So I thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your advocacy. You know, what you've just said, transportation dollars are very, very hard to come by right now in Maryland with the Key Bridge and so many other needs in Baltimore, the Red Line, the Purple Line, WMATA. So, you know, those dollars need to be invested in the infrastructure that we currently have, Amtrak and the MARC trains in particular. And, you know, this idea we need to be able to get to Baltimore in 20, 25 minutes, we can already do that. And with with a little more money in the MARC trains, we can make that happen throughout the day instead of just during peak rush hour times.
I just had three more quick things that I was reminded of. Kathy she's being shy, she doesn't want to come up. Is in DC, There was last year a very much a Japanese-centered, like anime conference, a big
Yes.
conference, and Maglev had a table there. And they were really courting the Japanese technology, et cetera, and having the Maglev. But also, there was a news article that just came out recently that in Japan, everything is
Yes.
held up till like 2027, or they can't really meet that expectation because of one section, one prefecture that of environmental groups, and the mayor was reelected and everything too, so everybody was happy with that. And there are a lot of environmental problems, and they're not budging. So that whole section is held up. So that's not moving along apace either. And one other thing about the Secretary of Transportation, he also came back after seeing a lot of the high-speed trains. He said he's in support of, he didn't say the Maglev, but he did say he was in support of high-speed trains, and he marked like the Bright Line and some others. But we sent a letter to him that said, that's great, we love about high-speed trains and whatever, but not the Maglev. So we have to keep our eye on that too. So he's kind of open to the idea about high speed because it has glamour to it. So I think that's in essence what happens. It's glamorous.
Well, we definitely appreciate your passion, your hard work, and just your focus, your ongoing focus. We continue and will continue to retain Jill Grant and Associates as a law firm that's going to represent our interest, and they are monitoring what's happening in the Congress on the federal level and state level. In regard to the site, what's happening in D.C., I think we need to kind of just visually keep our eye on that area between New York Avenue, Bladensburg Avenue, and South Dakota Avenue. It's an industrial area, and I believe that's where they have mentioned that they would probably put a station.
There's a hand raised online if we want to do.
Yes, please.
Dr. Rosato?
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to add that the Maglev people are actually sending out petitions and getting people to sign petitions over Instagram, saying what a wonderful thing this would be, and they need a lot of support. So I think that's something that people should be cognizant of and about.
Thank you. That's a great point. So just to kind of wrap things up, if someone wants more information or they want to become involved, what should they go to the website, or what should they do?
Yes, you can go to the website, mcrtaction.org. and
mcrtaction.org.
Right, and look up on the main page, there are updates, and then there is a tab that says SC Maglev Opposition. And on that page, it has our comments about the draft environmental impact statement and the MDE water quality, there were two, because BWRR had to submit again papers that were missing, documents missing from their original application. So we have two sets of comments, and comments including from Greenbelt, comments from other supporting organizations who are in opposition, and a lot of videos. So you can see Citizens Greenbelt and elsewhere, and comments that they have made about this proposed project. So do go there, and if you have our newsletter, just click over, and you can put out my email if you'd like. That's fine too. So if you would do that, and what is our email? mcrt-action@gmail.com. No. Our email, yeah. mcrtaction, no dash, @gmail.com. Excuse me, mcrtaction@gmail.com. Sorry, we get
Got it.
too many little details all there.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
for
Susan.
inviting me.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, we're going to move on. So the next item has been special ordered. It's the DEI report recommendations and action plan. Tyra Smith is here with us on April the 19th. There's a memo in the packet which provides a summary of the Tribacy's analysis of the structural and cultural strengths, gaps, and opportunities and recommendations from the study that they've conducted. on the Jedi audit presentation. So Tyra Smith is, in fact, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. She is here to present City Council with a PowerPoint presentation on these recommendations. So, Ms. Smith, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Alrighty, so I would like to start off our presentation today with just going over the problem statement that we have here about the report. So the recent JEDI audit report has, of course, as you all know, shed light to an unhealthy work environment. And it's crucial for us as leadership to recognize and acknowledge these past wrongs. So words cannot adequately capture the profound impact these issues have had on our staff. And it's important that we address them head on and implement meaningful changes to grow a healthier Greenbelt moving forward. So moving forward, we have been strategic planning with rebuilding trust and boosting staff morale and taking our employee voices into consideration in our decision-making process. And so we're going to plan to do that with two approaches. A top-down approach, which will consist of getting our senior team and those in supervisory roles aligned on, what DEI is, and reviewing our policies and programs through a JEDI lens. So this approach, it will aim to improve systemic accountability by department. And then our bottom-up approach will be establishing our diversity and inclusion leads through the JEDI Action Team. We'll actually be having our first Action Team meeting tomorrow at 2. So the Action Team will play an important role in driving our JEDI initiatives, our programs, and employee engagement opportunities across departments. So they will also work to establish a JEDI vision for the city and drive alignment across departments in collaboration with myself. So I want to go over some of the key gaps that were noted in the audit. So dialogue skills, it was noted that there's a need for dialogue skills across all departments, just in how we're communicating with each other, to build relationships, empathy, and an understanding of employee experiences. DEI training, so we need to build learning opportunities for understanding what justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion means for the city, and how we can apply it to our roles. A DEI mission and vision. Currently, the city does not have one. And so we need a DEI identity with purpose and goals to work towards across all of our departments. Data collection and alignment. We should be able to track and report on procedural program impact. So, how are the things that we're offering our staff in our community? How are they being impacted by these things? And it's also important to create a metric to ensure that, we're aligned with our JEDI vision and goals. And then departmental silos, these were mentioned, across the board numerous times. Our employees, they have a strong interest in collaborating with one another. And so we're going to address this by making sure that our employees are able to engage with one another and kind of breaking down these silos. So, okay. Sorry. So our key recommendations noted in the audit, these are coming directly from our key gaps. So we need to develop an education campaign. So as a city and a community, we should all be aligned on our understanding of JEDI, what that is, what the concepts are, what falls under that DEI umbrella. We need to define a clear and precise JEDI vision, like I said, so that the city has an identity with purpose and goals to work towards. We need to develop the alignment tool for decision making, and that will better align all efforts within the city's JEDI vision. A comprehensive leadership training for managers, directors, and all who hold a supervisory role. So this is going to be key to rebuilding that trust. It's an essential function in that we need leadership to commit to learning inclusive practices and understanding JEDI concepts. and then collaborating across departments to build relationships. Again, we want to make sure our employees are having the opportunity to engage with one another. And so this is just an overview of all of the recommendations, both structural and cultural. And this is where we pulled those key gaps and recommendations from. So I can go through them, or I can give you all a few moments to read because it is a lot.
I've read through. I think council has read through the report carefully. Yeah.
So our Greenbelt DEI goals, like I said, so these are pulled directly from our recommendations. So defining JEDI, so we will work on what that means for Greenbelt. Breaking silos across both structural and the cultural report is noted, that our employees really want to work with one another. We want to know, like, what are we working on? How can we contribute? What can we do to help? Employee recognition, our employees, they do amazing work, and we need to establish ways to recognize and appreciate the work that they're doing. That will help us in boosting that staff morale. Fostering innovation, especially some of our newer employees, they come on board and they have, fresh ideas and new perspectives that they bring to the table. And so we want to make sure that we're creating spaces where they can bring those ideas to light. And then employee engagement, working to establish more opportunities to bring into employees together, both for fun and learning experiences. So we have crafted a learning journey for all staff. So before we can really, dive into what JEDI is, there are different levels of learning opportunities that we need to go through. So starting with the foundational learning, as we noted with the dialogue skills being a key gap, we need to go over some effective dialogue training, workshops, programming, some conflict management, and some emotional intelligence review. From there, we can move into DEI understanding. So, defining DEI for the city, and then connecting that understanding of DEI to your why, to your role, to how it impacts you and impacts everyone across the board. And then from there, we can move into some of these other key concepts of DEI to really dive into the conversation, such as, understanding identities and intent versus impact, and, unconscious bias and microaggressions, cultural awareness, and then power and privilege. And so that learning journey is intended for all staff to complete. My personal goal is that we could get at least, 60% of the work staff trained in those competency areas. And then from there, we have looked at developing leadership and supervisory development. And so they will go through, of course, the emotional intelligence and effective dialogue, conflict management training, connecting DEIY to their various roles and departments. And then from there, we can dive a little bit into, what is inclusive leadership? How can we host inclusive meetings? How can we create inclusive spaces? And so this level of training would be for all staff who hold a supervisory role. And this learning journey is, really essential into rebuilding trust, because it's showing our employees that we are committed to learning how we can communicate with one another, and then how we can move forward with addressing these concerns and creating these inclusive spaces. And so upon completion of this learning journey, this learning development, the DEI office will also work with managers to develop what we'll call manager belonging goals. And then I have an example of what that is on the next slide. So this is just an example. So let's say, we're going through all of these trainings, we're going through this programming, this learning development, and then we have a goal to foster a sense of belonging and inclusivity among team members to enhance collaboration, morale, and productivity. So what that could look like, right, is objective one would be to cultivate an inclusive team environment. And so our action step to doing that would be encouraging open communication and mutual respect among team members, regardless of background or differences in, employee level, things like that. Then objective 2 could be to provide opportunities for employee input and participation. This actually is an important one because right now our employees don't really feel as confident that they can put in their input and participate. So we want to make sure that we are doing this. So an action step would be to create avenues for team members to contribute to the decision-making processes, such as, brainstorming sessions or suggestion boxes, things like that. And so our Jedi Action Team, as you heard me mention before, is the bottom-up approach that I talked about. So this is just part of the flyer that I put out requesting our employees to sign up for our action team. So we're, looking for enthusiastic individuals who are committed to this work because they are going to hold a key role in driving these initiatives forward. So the Jedi Action Team, eventually after going through training with Tribacy, will be divided into 3 subcommittees where we will focus on the employee engagement and recognition, strategic planning, and then awareness and education. So our next steps, I did create this under the intention that we were going to have our Jedi Action Team last Thursday, but I was sick with tonsillitis, so I had to reschedule it to tomorrow. So after tomorrow's meeting, next steps will be they will engage in training with the Tribacy consultants. So they will have 3 trainings that will cover like that foundational, that first level of training that I mentioned previously. A North Star workshop, which is defining DEI for the city. What does that look like for us? This will set, a clear direction and purpose for our team's initiatives. And then designing alignment and assessment tools. The action team will work to develop these tools, and it will enable the team to monitor the impact of their efforts and then ensure that they're aligned with organizational goals and values. So our ask to council is to have a council member liaison participate in the action team, and then also to commit to participating in the learning journey, because this is work that's going to take honestly all of us, and so it would be very essential for all of us to have that alignment and understanding on what is Jedi, what are the city of Greenbelt, what does that mean to the city of Greenbelt, and how we're going to move forward together. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I had a couple of questions if you.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. How many members do you plan to have for the Jedi Action Team?
Right now I have, I want to say 13 employees signed up.
And do you have representatives from all departments or?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. And I guess I should start by saying that I think we were all started a little bit disheartened by the Tribacy results, but I think that it's important to take that in stride and see it as something that we need to improve on and something that we can improve on, even though it was not necessarily what we wanted to see after their results. But I think it's more important to have these important issues come to light than to leave them buried. So I know this is going to be difficult work, but it's absolutely worth doing.
Right. And, our report is not unique. This is something that is common across all organizations, municipalities, cities, businesses across the nation. And so I know it is, hard to read and hard to hear that it's going on, but the fact that we brought it to light has also really, boosted morale with our employees. They are appreciative that we are bringing these things to light and that we are making a commitment to move forward and address these things that they're bringing to us.
Yes, Ms. Palmer.
I just want to say I really appreciate the employee-centered approach this whole process has taken, because I think it's really important that we're hearing directly from them. This is nobody else's sort of 1,000-foot view of who we are as an organization. This is, the city and the city's employees reflecting deeply on themselves and on the changes that they want to see and the changes that we need to make. And it can be really hard to look introspectively in that way. But I'm very proud of our city for doing this work. I had another resident come up to me this weekend and tell me how proud she was that our city is actually willing to engage in the hard work of making the working environment here inclusive and a place that people want to work and stay. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate the approach that we've taken, and I appreciate the transparency with which this whole process has been conducted and the safe space that you all have created for our employees to actually be able to say some of these really difficult things.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, Councilmember McKinney.
I want to echo just thank you. This is not easy work to do in any space. What I really liked about your presentation is the forward thinkingness from an organizational and a talent development perspective. So you've listed here the learning journey for all staff. And if you look at this and you look at the core learning practices in here, these are core learning things that any employee and any organization should really have developed within them. And so if we're focused on developing talent and we're focused on developing an organization, if you look at all of the different organizations that are in human resources and things like that, what people are looking for when they're hiring people are not only their technical skills, but are also their soft skills and their leadership skills. And these are really the core leadership skills when you're looking into the future that people want to hire and people want to retain for. So yes, it is looking at some of the things that obviously have happened in our city, but this really is forward thinking and looking at how can we develop the city and the staff to support our community in the best way possible. So one question I would have is just around this, and this might be more of a question for Mr. Salmarone versus you, around what type of training do we typically offer our city employees? Because I know when we're going through the budget, we typically see training around the technical skills. But I'm also wondering, what type of other like leadership development and soft skills training do we typically offer? And can that be leveraged as part of what is going into this framework and building from there, so that there are sort of the three pillars in here. We might only be focusing on one and we're kind of adding to it.
We have standard training that we do in different departments, so it varies. But the approach we've taken here is to looking at the learning journey for all of our staff. What are emotional intelligence skills and other soft skills that we want to develop across the organization? So we are doing the traditional sexual harassment training. The police department has a lot more advanced training because of the type of work that they do. Their crisis intervention work. CARES has a deeper level of social work-oriented training that they do because of the nature of the work that they do. So we want to learn from what these different departments are doing to get at those softer skills. We want to have a basic core competency across the entire organization. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to, I'd like to say that we're talking about this in the context of a presentation of the findings of the study that we commissioned. So at this time, I'm thinking the staff focus, internal, has already begun to take place. There's 2 town halls, there's a meeting coming up in a couple of days. So you're to be commended on the progress that we're making in terms of acting on the recommendations. I'm wondering, there was some other work that was done just 2 years ago. We participated with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. They had a Government Alliance on Race and Equity curriculum that they facilitated. And I believe our senior management team actually took part in that. Of course, it was during the pandemic. Things were a little different then. So I'm hoping that we can incorporate some of the dialogue or lessons learned coming out of that work as we move forward. So was there a written, I went through, and I believe Mayor Pro Tem went through that curriculum as well.
Yeah, I think it was slightly different for the
For the
elected
elected,
officials.
but-
I think it was actually more intensive for the
The
staff members.
Yes. So I just want to make sure that we actually incorporate the time and thought that went into that and the outcomes as we move forward. I was really startled in looking over the JEDI audit report from the consultants. I felt like the points that came out were very, very valid, very important things for us to look at as we move forward. It's sort of is a snapshot of where the organization is, and there are a lot of things going on just with transitions with the city manager and staff morale. So I kind of feel like I was startled with our evaluation. I felt like we've been doing a lot of work and have made a great deal of progress over several years. So I, for one, want to make sure that progress continues on. We move forward. So hopefully, council will have and the public will have a chance to be engaged in some way with a work session or something, just particularly around setting that identity, the DEI identity, because it's something that we all have to kind of buy in. Staff-centered at this time. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, and actually that was one of the questions I had, was where we are in terms of the next phase, because I believe there were already some community surveys about starting to get engagement and getting volunteers who wanted to engage. But where are we in terms of starting the more outward facing phase of the audit?
Yes, so right now we are, I'm logistically planning with the consultants right now on what phase 2 setup will look like. So we put out that initial community questionnaire just to hear from the community on, as far as, what days of the week would be best for engaging with them, what locations would be like most accessible for them, and then, times. So right now it's looking like we're going to settle on starting that up in August, as far as like the focus groups and interviews and, just stopping by and engaging with the community. We're trying to be mindful of vacations and then school starting. So that's what we're looking at right now. Our next planning meeting, I believe, is going to be scheduled for next week with them. So we should be finalizing on some hard dates for that soon.
I'll add, if I may, that we have funded part of the phase 2 work to ensure that we continue the momentum and we don't lose anything by over time. As council is aware, the phase 2 of the Tribacy assessment is funded in the next fiscal year. However, I'm actively looking at savings in the organization so that we can fund that work as soon as possible. But currently, should council approve the budget, the funding for the phase 2 is in FY 2025 budget.
Let's take some comments from the public. Yes, Mr. Rand? This is a presentation, so my attention initially was to actually thinking in terms of having a deeper discussion and a work session where we could delve into this deeply, but this is a council meeting, so it's a presentation. Mr. Rand.
Yeah, thanks. Bob Rand, 19 Ridge Road. So I wanted to point out that in addition to talking about issues with staff, the full report does have a section on the council. And I just wanted to read just a couple sentences here. Despite the City Council's commendable diversity, there was a concerning lack of accountability in moving forward with a Jedi lens. This failure to hold itself accountable hampers the Council's ability to make necessary structural changes within its own framework. The Council's adherence to old systems and traditional approaches limits its capacity for creativity and innovation in finding new ways to address systemic inequities and promote justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I don't know what that means practically, but I'm hoping that the council will take some leadership here and talk amongst yourselves about what that means and what the practical implications are that. And a question I do have is council being trained by Tribacy as well as staff? Are there opportunities for that to happen?
There are training opportunities to explore. That's one of the reasons we're asking for a council member liaison to be part of the Jedi work, so that we're capturing the inputs of council and how we meet council where it wants to go with this training. So there's a piece of this for all of us.
Ms. McKinney?
Yeah, I was going to add thank you to that because I think we, as council members, we're all part of one community, and so the study not only looks at, to your point, the community and the city, but also the city council itself, and just creating more transparency, more understanding, and some more structure. I think one of the goals of having the council work sessions or the council retreat that we did, which was to start that process. So building off of some of the things that we heard from Trivacy, we had a part one where council came together and started talking about what were our goals, how were we going to work together, how were we going to create greater transparency and communication with the community. And then we did a part two of that just a few weeks ago. And I think we're hoping to come together and present some of those discussions and continuing discussions and working groups and working together to try to present what we came up with as a council to try to address some of those things that came out in the Trivacy study.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to second Ms. Smith's ask the council that your leadership is going to be critical, I think, in this process. And just one final point I wanted to drop down. In this section, it talks a lot about communication and responsiveness. So my experience, and in comparing notes with other people, is that staff is very responsive to emails, council is not. I very rarely get a response from council on an email or a letter that I send out. So I don't know how you handle that because I know you're all just really busy. But I think even if the server had an automated response, hey, thanks for your email. We appreciate your taking the time to communicate with council. At least that would be something. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orleans, I believe, was next.
Thank you, Bill Orleans, Greenbelt. My apologies for being late tonight. I missed much of the early part of the meeting. Metro made me late once again. I would like to note the presence, and I can't account for it. Otherwise, I hope I'll learn it later. I welcome back Mr. Deloach to our meetings, and I hope this sets a precedent for future meetings. I was curious, as has been pointed out, the phase one of the study was Trivacy meeting with employees. I presume, if not all employees, nearly all employees. I was interested in the presentations from a couple of weeks ago when there were bubbles containing comments, individual comments of some city employees, obviously without regard to their name or any other identifying characteristic. But some of the comments were very revealing, along the lines of, my manager's no good, or my manager doesn't pay attention to me ever, or those are all good old boys, and along the lines that maybe some, hopefully a small number of city employees feel disaffected from their departmental leaderships, and that would include ultimately the city management generally and maybe city council. I don't know. I hope there'll be further exploration of the individual feelings and beliefs of city employees who have indicated they're somewhat unhappy. But the reason I'm raising that is I'm interested in the teams, and I've lost the page here. I think I heard Ms. Smith say that there were 13 city employees signed up thus far. I hope, I don't know if there's a expected best number of team members. I want to resist calling it the Jedi team, but the process team. And are they self-selecting? Are they being encouraged to volunteer to be on the team by their departmental leadership? Once on the team, will they be simply responding to prompts from either the consultants or maybe yourself, Ms. Smith, or maybe the city council liaison? Or will, as team members, they be allowed to explore the concept of diversity and equity and inclusion themselves without prompts and direction from others? I'm looking forward to the next focus, the next phase, where I understand the consultants having focus groups with the community. And ultimately, I hope to live long enough to see that team, the team resulting from the focus group on the communities established. Anyway, if I could get an answer to those couple of questions, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So as far as the employees being encouraged to sign up, yes, they are being encouraged to sign up. It is self selection. So they are signing up on their own accord, their own interest in the group. And we have sent out, numerous communications and advertisements for employees to not only sign up for the action team, but also to provide feedback just from the town hall and their experiences with going through the report and, just the structural like that. Really trying to start with that data collection metrics so that we're able to hear from the employees consistently on, what we're doing. So yes to that. And then the Jedi Action Team, that's what it's about, the individuals who are signing up, I know some of them and I know that they have a passion for this work and they are very interested. They already have ideas. They already have perspectives that they want to see come to light. And so when we are into these meetings, it's not going to be prompted around, just whatever. We are going to be more so aligned with the gaps and the recommendations in the audit, but as far as the what, that is completely up to the team to decide how we're going to do that.
Appreciate that. Jay Davis.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. I'm trying to be very careful how I word this because I believe that what was presented tonight is a very positive strategy and it is something that we need to do, and I understand that. But unfortunately, what is being said in social media is counterproductive at this time. And I was hoping that you were going to say that there's going to be a work session to talk about the audit and that it is soon, because what is going around social media, and I'm sure you've read it, is very negative and it's very destructive. And I think part of it is that people out in the world, council all knows and the employees know what were the goals of the audit. I don't think the general public understood that. And when they read the audit, some of the terminology, strategies became something that caused pushback. I had a negative reaction to the audit myself. I said, whoa, I know we're doing more than what is being presented in this audit. And words like white bubble, white default is causing a reaction that we need to deal with because that's part of the problem. And so I'm hoping that we do have a work session, town hall, whatever, so that everyone understands what this is all about, that this is not a blaming thing or a pointing finger thing or a negative thing. It is something that we all have to go through so that we can be a better community in the long run. And just my opinion and what I've been reading.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Niesel?
Jay, I'm just so thankful that you brought up feeling uncomfortable because that is truly where the learning begins. And as long as you're able to take that discomfort and learn from it instead of putting up a defensive wall, that is the entirety of what we are trying to do with DEI and Jedi. So it's near and dear to my heart, and I'm so glad that you took that the right way.
And I certainly concur that we should have a work session to talk about this in greater detail and to get more input. We got an email from Michael Hartman. I'll read that quickly. Dear Council and staff, because I am unable to attend the City Council meeting tonight, I'm writing in support of the recommendations from the Jedi audit sent to you by Tyra Smith, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. It is sadly ironic that this report is being discussed on the first night of Passover, which is a major holiday in the Jewish community. One note that I would like to make is that mindful consideration of policies and practices and how they affect individuals with disabilities is a citywide need and crosses departmental lines. It is critical to consider the effects of all policies and practices, as well as in studies and reviews on individuals with disabilities, if we are to become a truly barrier-free city and community. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And there are a couple of comments online. Do you want to?
Yeah, Justin Baker had his hand up first.
Mr. Baker, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. I am one of the people that Ms. Davis said was repelled by the audit report findings. I'm quoting from the audit report. The city government is threatened by whiteness. There's a white default in the city government, which is the normalization of whiteness, which whatever that means. There's a threat from a cohort of white veteran employees. The city government is operating in a white bubble, and we need to identify behaviors rooted in white default. All of that is extremely racist rhetoric, extremely racist attitudes, and this is driving a extremely racist agenda. I think everybody should be appalled by what is being promoted through the audit report and through the DEI program for this city. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we have one more comment. And, this is why I really wanted to have the discussion in a work session or a town hall, because, we're in a council meeting. So let's take another comment, please.
Yeah, Dr. Rosado.
Dr. Rosado, welcome.
Yes, I would like to commend those who worked on this. It is a difficult report to read, and I just heard what Mr. Baker said, which is why I do believe it is absolutely essential for there to be a town hall meeting or some explanation of the terms used in the report. And it's going to make people uncomfortable, but it's not unusual for me. The question I have is, I understand a city survey was done to the general public, but I don't recall seeing that. I saw something, but it was a Microsoft program or Microsoft something or other. If there was a survey, how was it distributed to the residents?
Ms. Smith?
So the Microsoft form is it's just a pre-survey, just like we said, trying to get feedback on making sure that when we are coming in to host the town halls and the focus groups for the community, that we're taking into consideration the needs of the community as far as, what time, if we need childcare to be available, transportation needs, accessibility, things of that nature. So that Microsoft form was distributed across our social media platforms by our PRO office. There are some flyers up in Roosevelt Center. I've been working with trying to get some flyers up into PG Community College and UMD, so that we're also hearing from our college level students. So the survey we are still taking responses for that because it is essential in our logistical planning.
So where is the survey? And I don't know why SurveyMonkey wasn't used because it's much easier. Where is the survey? Where can one fill out that survey?
There have been recent posts of it across our social media accounts. I know that our PIO officer has been posting them. So they can be found on our Facebook, LinkedIn, and our other avenues that we have been using, our website, to communicate with the community.
The city's website? Because I don't use Facebook.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hey, are there any other comments online? Yes.
I had an email comment, the comment that was emailed to me. This comment comes from Louise Weissman, who's a Greenbelt resident. I read through the documents. Excellent. I had difficult finding reference to the development of a code of ethics or a code of conduct. It could be very likely be there, and I'm just tired. There is reference to the city code, but I'm not sure that is the document I'm referring to, but just in case. The code of ethics or conduct would include policies and rules for elected officials, supervisors, employees, city committees, and or boards, as well as volunteers to follow. The code reflects a mission and is guided by fundamental values, integrity, leadership, volunteerism, and a commitment to serve. The code illuminates the city's JEDI principles and practices.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
One more just come in via email. This is from John Appia Diffel, who's a Greenbelt resident. Good evening. I'm watching online now. Just a quick note to say thank you so much for understanding this vital and difficult justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work. It's a credit to the council and to the city that you're taking this on, and I hope you continue undeterred.
Thank you, thank you. Let's see, I'll take one more question. Mr. Hurling, you had a comment? And then we're going to move on.
I do take it that this has been also, as part of this process, referred over to the Community Relations Advisory Board? Or is that something that has been considered?
CRAB has received a copy of this report.
The town hall would, okay, so the town hall would
you're
obviously
suggesting
include
that-
the Community Relations Advisory Board,
So you
since
s-
this is a Community Relations Advisory Board kind of question. The other thing is that I just want to recommend, as someone that's lived all but the first 10 of my life in Greenbelt, so 70 years, there's been a lot of change and there's been a lot of positive change. I do hope that the positive aspects in terms of the city's growth and improvement as in terms of the human relations is also being considered as part of the equation here. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So it sounds like one of the things you just suggested is actually asking the Community Relations Advisory Board to convene a town hall. Now, at the same time, we do have the Reparations Commission hard at work, and I and many people are looking forward to getting a public briefing and update on exactly where they are. So there are a lot of activities going on in the city around DEI, and it's very timely. It's important to address these issues to move forward.
We do have one more
There's
hand.
one more hand, and I really, after this one more hand, we have to move on. It's 9 o'clock. We're in a council meeting, not a work session.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo many of the sentiments that Mr. Baker expressed, and that also Ms. Davis partially expressed. One not need to be educated or informed more or anything else like that to see the inherent displacement, disrespect, and borderline racial, ethnic, religious undertones to this. This city, of which we always have said Greenbelt is great, was born and built upon people of all races, creeds, colors, national origins, volunteering, serving, working for the city, etc. And to have any group disrespected as the words, the intent, the statements of this report, all you can say is that what you read is what is intended. The people who object to this report, to object to the content, are not just people making noise on social media. They are people for whom this disrespects their ancestors on a day for those who celebrate and believe in the Jewish faith, makes perhaps some disrespect for the contributions of many of the Jewish faith who have contributed to Greenbelt and served in Greenbelt, both on council and committees and throughout activities. The council needs to proceed with this very carefully. Many places in the country are completely reconsidering DEI in its completeness. We have an HR department that is fully staffed. This is something that needs to be considered very carefully and needs to be done at a work session, perhaps at several work sessions, community town halls, etc. I note as I watch this on television that one council member has been shaking her head in agreement with every positive statement, while other people have been keeping their powder dry, so to speak, or more specifically, showing nothing, which is, I think, the better way of doing it. Every council member will have to determine this for themselves, but realize that people who object to this are not needing to be educated. They are not needing to be risen up. They are not people who are being looked down upon. These are people who have committed their lives to this community, to this city. They're first generation, second generation of all religions, all faiths, all creeds, all races, and they're upset by what is in this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Tyra Smith, thank you for your work on this topic and your work with Tri-Bessie and the community and moving forward with the JEDI audit recommendations. And Mr. Samron, thank you for working with staff as a whole as we move forward, take steps to move forward.
Thank you, Council.
Okay. Next up on the agenda is administrative reports. Mr. Samaron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had numerous activities to report on, but I'll be brief on my administrative report so that we can give time to Police Chief Bowers to provide an update on Friday's tragic incident. We had numerous successful events. We hosted the NLC 100 Roadshow on Monday. Great turnout, great feedback from the team. So we're really happy we were able to pull that off so successfully. We celebrated Arbor Day. Thank you all for coming out and planting trees and doing some beautification work. There's also a kickoff for the Little League Baseball. Channel WUSA did a spotlight on Greenbelt and Buddy Attic Park. Charleston North Apartment continues on a good trajectory, meeting inspection goals and are now fully staffed, and I'll forward a thorough update on that situation. CARES, Brindy Garcia acquired community health worker certification with the Maryland Department of Health, so that's we're investing in our teams. The Washington Adventist School of Nursing hosted a mini bilingual health fair where we supported over 50 families were assisted. The Community Development Block Grant for PY50, Greenbelt has been recommended for funding in the amount of $191,221. This will be our highest grant award under that program. County will have a hearing on May 7th. And now we'll turn the floor over to Police Chief Bowers for an update.
Chief Bowers, thank you for being with us tonight. The events of Friday afternoon here at Schramm Hills Park is just startling, it's disappointing, but for the work that the Greenbelt Police Department has done in coordination with the state police and the county police, took a difficult and a bad situation, and fortunately, no lives were lost, but we were hoping that you could provide us with a quick update on what has transpired and where we are right now.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'll be brief. Just a short recap. As you recall, on Friday of last week, officers responded to Schramm Hills Park for what was initially a report of disorderly conduct, loud noise, and parking complaints. Upon arrival, the initial officers discovered between 500 and 600 what turned out to be high school kids. At the park, these kids came from schools all across the county. Eleanor Roosevelt, Bowie, Wise, a number of different schools were involved. And these kids wound up in our city after having been in other parks across the county, and then coalesced in one final spot at about 2:30 that afternoon. Officers were on scene prior to anything, the shots occurring, and those officers were attempting to take control of traffic, which Hanover Parkway was completely stopped, as well as gain some control over the crowd that was in the park. At the time of the initial response, it was a large crowd, but generally behaving is the best term I'll put. They had squirt guns and doing things like that, so it really wasn't anything that was going to be detrimental. And the decision was made at the time that we would monitor that crowd. There'd be no possible way we could remove them all from the park, given the number of officers and the number of people involved. We had assistance from the Prince George's County Police Department, the Maryland State Police, and Berwyn Heights PD. While the officers were essentially having a briefing and then concluding that briefing and starting to walk towards the crowd, they heard gunshots. About 10 gunshots in total were fired. Officers responded into the crowd, located ultimately 5 injured people suffering from gunshot wounds, and those victims ranged in age from 16 to 18. 5 of them were transported to local hospitals. 2 currently remain hospitalized. 3 were released. And so since that point, we have worked on a variety of leads through our investigation, and we continue to work on that. Our detectives were here all weekend long and continue to work on the case. We hope to have resolution in the near future, but at this point, it's still a really active investigation, so I don't want to say too much about that. But we are making progress, and we think we'll have some resolution perhaps by the end of the week.
Thank you very much. And if you could share my or council's appreciation for the focus and the work that's taken place over the weekend to try and just bring things to a resolution. It's just an unfortunate situation all the way around, other than the fact that there were no fatalities. So, thank you for the work you're doing. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask about is because, as you noted, they had been at another park elsewhere and then ended up at Shrom Hills later. Is that something that we can make sure, as these things are happening, that there's maybe better communication? Maybe, I don't know if it's through the county police or whatever. Just it seems like be nice if we could have gotten more of a heads up, because I know the park rangers had checked the park 45 minutes before or something like that, and it was basically empty, and then suddenly there's a huge influx of kids. So is there a way we can maybe coordinate, because we know these senior skip days happen in the springtime, we know they're coming, and if there's maybe some better coordination so they can say, hey, this big group of kids just left this area, and notify the other departments to be maybe on. I know we were paying attention, but even paying attention even more. I don't know.
I know exactly what you're saying, and it is something that we've talked about. We had a meeting on Sunday with other municipal police agencies in the county talking about potentially a skip day part 2, which may be scheduled for later this week, and then as we go into next year, being a little bit better coordinated with the SROs and when these things are coming up, and being able to be more proactive. One of the things I will say, we have since made some changes over at Shrom Hills Park to monitor the facility to make sure that there is no part 2. And those include having the trailer camera placed right in the front of the park where it's got a lot of visibility, and we're able to see the entire park. The park rangers will be stationed at the park from 12 to 4 every weekday, and that's supplemented by our police patrols. So we'll have a heavy presence within the facility until when school lets out. So we'll make sure that we don't have a repeat of this incident at the facility.
Well, and I recall there was another of these events last year that, I think it was the night before we actually had our Arbor Day planning last year, and I think the thing that mostly resulted from that was trash that Public Works had to clean up. So I think, it doesn't take much, unfortunately, for it to go from being fairly benign to something awful.
And last year's groups were smaller.
Well,
right?
and that's probably one of the big factors.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier today. We think last year, 100 to 150 people, mostly Eleanor Roosevelt kids. So obviously different, much larger crowd, right? So you'd go from basically triple what we had as a group last year. And so unfortunately, something like this did occur.
Makes it more volatile the more
Yes.
the more kids you have gathered.
Councilmember.
Obviously, Senior Skip Day is not a school-sanctioned event. And often the administration don't actually know exactly when it's going to happen, but they do know at some point. I mean, once first period has happened, like my son who goes to Roosevelt told me in his first period class, which is an AP biology class, there were 11 kids. So like more than half the class was missing. So that's because they're seniors, right? So there is a point at which the schools do realize that Senior Skip Day is happening. So maybe we could just ask them to communicate that with the police, like after first period, just give a call and say, hey, like 65% of our senior class isn't here today, so maybe they're out there. I just like that communication would be helpful, like understanding they don't know necessarily in advance, but they do know at some point. that it's happening.
That's a great point. I know that there is good communication between Roosevelt High School and the Greenbelt Police Department through the people that we have there. But, I think this is a learning opportunity maybe, and just enhancing that communication, making sure that those lines are open. Because with social media being the way it is, if the word gets out on Instagram and suddenly a bunch of people from all over the county are reading it, then, it's just impossible to really react. The difference between having 50 young people, high school students, having an informal get together and having 500 or 600 people in one place, this is all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. And the thing is with social media, there's a number of different social media apps, whether it be
WhatsApp.
Instagram, Facebook, those aren't really used by kids anymore. It's Telegram, it's TikTok,
Telegram.
it's a bunch of stuff we don't even have on our phones. And so those apps change faster than the manufacturers can come up with them. What you think you're on today, tomorrow they're on a different app already. So it is really difficult, and we do rely on our partners for the intel on a lot of this stuff, and sometimes it just the intel doesn't catch up as quick as the people who post it. And they're also sophisticated. Like I said, there's an advertisement for a part 2, right? But they're not providing the location until just before the event. So you have to know what channel to be on to look for the location, an hour or 2 before the event's going to begin. Right? So they're very sophisticated in terms of keeping that sort of stuff secret. And I will add, the officers that were there that day, the officers that came to assist, whether it be Greenbelt City Police officers, Prince George's County, the Maryland State Police that were there to help us, everybody's response was phenomenal. And because of the heavy congestion, the fire department couldn't get into the facility for well over 20 minutes. Right? And if not for the medical care provided by our staff, there may have been fatalities, right? And so the tactical medical care that our officers provided on scene was phenomenal and potentially life-saving. The work that our detectives have done in partnership with the county and their firearms evidence unit has been phenomenal to get us to this point. The collaboration with Bowie City PD, their SRO, their intelligence people to gather potential information has been phenomenal. So it has been a team effort. It has been a lot of work, particularly by our detectives who have put in pretty much 10 to 12 to 20-hour days since this occurred to get us to where we are now. And like I said, we're in a good spot investigative-wise, but we're not there yet. So we still have some things to finish. But it's been a lot of work and a lot of really quality police work. And I will say, we from the bottom up, we have an excellent force. We have an excellent group of dedicated law enforcement professionals who performed at the highest level that they could have and continue to get this matter closed.
Mr. Roberts, then Councilmember McKinney.
Well, for one thing, I commend your officers for running in there after they hear shots. I mean, that's something that, took a little bit of, guts to do, no doubt. But, the way I see this is, unfortunately, we're seeing the aftermath and we're, talking about how we're going to fix it and all. But the thing that we really need to fix that, is the really hard part is, why are so many young people, high school students, running around with weapons and they're so easy to use them?
I wish I could answer your question.
Yeah,
I don't have the answer to that one.
I mean, this is our societal problem. I mean, this is just gone so haywire that it's just unbelievable. I mean, this can't be happening so much. So whatever we can do, otherwise with other issues around firearms and access to firearms and all that, we really need to change the way our society's working, because it's not working, unfortunately. Because we all went to high school. We all went to, even us old people went to high school at one time. And I don't ever remember, any of my friends or, anybody in high school, from anywhere, carrying around a gun or threatening to use it or anything else. And it just seems like in this last generation, it's blossomed with, all these weapons. And I know people don't believe it, but I think it really has a lot to do with what kids are watching on TV, what they're seeing on the computers, all that stuff. It's all violence. It's all violence. All the big movies are all violence. It's about shooting and killing people. The games that the kids play now is all violence and killing and all that stuff. It's really not a good way to continue our lives. So we have to do, I'm just saying we need to do more than fixate on, what happened and start fixating on how not to have a society like that, because clearly it's not working and it's just spiraling more and more out of control. So, but, thank you all for doing a great job with what you had to work with. But I hope in the future, if we know that, this is coming or whatever, we need to just shut the park down and that's it. We can't allow 600 or 1,000 people to go streaming into the park, obviously, because. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember McKinney.
Thank you, Chief. Just a quick follow-up to what you had mentioned before. You were talking about working with your partners and various agencies. So has there been any talk about how to proactively have those conversations the next time around? So even if they are posting it now, it's great that people are working together after the fact, but I'm hoping with some of these other agencies that you can say, okay, what are we doing in front of that? Especially because I know there was some communication about maybe where students were before they came to our park. How do you communicate to get that to us quickly?
That's one of the things that we're working with the county on. It was another municipality. Fortunately, if the county police beats, we actually are in 3 county police beats. The city is sort of divided in an odd fashion. We kind of are at the nexus of 3 points. But fortunately, where Schramm Hills is located is also in the same county beat as the city of Bowie. And so the officers that came to help us had already been, so that's where we got a lot of that information from, and they were able to help us quite a bit. But it is something that we're constantly working with the county and with our municipal partners on. And one of the things that we'll do going into next year through the Chiefs Association is have these conversations in February about what do we need to do to be ready for the end of summer, because the county police deal with it, all the municipal agencies deal with it. And so making sure that we're all a little bit more prepared next year in terms of, hey, we're closing in on the end of school. Let's talk about what senior skip day is going to look like. And if anybody gets that information, using school security, because they have a lot of good information coming through them, to make sure we're kind of roundtabling that early, February, March, before we get to this point.
Councilmember.
I just wanted to say quickly, the chief mentioned the tactical medical training that our police officers have that probably really saved at least one life on Friday. And I don't know if a lot of people realize that most police forces don't have that kind of medical training. I mean, he's not talking about, basic first aid or CPR. Like, this is like wound care that they learn how to do. And we're really fortunate to have police officers who have that kind of training, and to have a chief and a police department that prioritizes that kind of training for our officers. So I just want to make sure everyone realizes that, things happened the way they happened in large part because we have a police force who's trained to deal with those kinds of situations, and we're really fortunate.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, and Chief, you talked about we have the portable trailer camera there now, and I think Ms. Pompey had brought this up via email, and I know Ms. Pope would probably ask the question if she were here this evening. But Mr. Summerall, can you because we've talked about the cameras at the clubhouse there, and there have been some issues with getting those installed. I think some power connection as well as internet connection. But can you just talk a little bit about that and kind of why they weren't there yet, and what we're doing to rectify that on a more permanent basis than just the trailer, which is great that we have for a temporary thing, but we've talked about it for a long time, and there are reasons why it wasn't there, but I think it's worth going through a little bit of that and what we're going to do about it.
Yes, I'll cover that briefly. Thank you, Council Member. It's been a multi-year long issue with those cameras. The camera is there, but does not record locally, requires a strong internet connection that we have been unable to get to that site Most recently, there was a T-Mobile 5G connection connected. The down signal is strong, but the up signal, which the camera requires, is not strong enough to constantly provide the video feed to record off-site. So we're looking into solutions to do recording on-site so that it's not so dependent on an internet connection, and simultaneously pushing for a reliable fixed internet connection at the site, fixed being a coaxial cable, which is available service at that site at an expense, but we're working on it. I feel fortunate that we have this trailer. Council was very supportive when we presented the idea of piloting the trailer cameras as a illegal dumping intervention strategy, and we've been piloting this at the Hanover Recycling Center, and today we moved the trailer over to Shrum Hills Park, and it's going to stay there until we have a working camera at the site. In the meantime, Public Works is also working on securing an additional trailer, so we have quotes that are coming in for that, and we'll bring a recommendation to council the next council meeting to acquire the secondary trailer. Initially, we had proposed to buy 2 trailer cameras, but we were unsure about its operations, how it works, so we wanted to pilot with 1 before we made the significant investment of buying 2 or more. So it's obviously proven its usefulness, its versatility, so we're in a position to come back to council and request authorization to acquire a second trailer camera.
And so the current camera, the trailer camera, does it use is that using a cell phone signal to send the video?
Yes, it uses a cell phone signal, a 5G wireless connection. It's able to record locally. It's got its own independent power source. It's got a solar panel on it. So it's a self-contained unit. It's been working well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mayor Pro Tem. I know that Councilmember Pope would be here tonight. She could not be here, but the camera thing, I want to make sure that our residents have realistic expectations about what cameras can do. They can be helpful in solving a crime. And in the case of a park, perhaps their greatest utility might be just in being able to monitor a large influx of people, because a park, just like any room, has a capacity. You can only get so many people into a space, and in this case, our park rangers are diligent about keeping an eye and monitoring the parks, but they cannot physically be there all the time. So they're there about an hour before all this happened. So a camera might be helpful in just seeing when a large surge of people are going in one direction or another. Chief, thank you so much for the update. Really appreciate it. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add that on the cameras, because these were not intended to be a law enforcement device, our number of users can be expanded. So we'll be adding our park rangers to the system so that they can remotely monitor the cameras. So when necessary. Appreciate all the gratitude the council has expressed. I want to recognize our Deputy Chief, Tim White, who was on scene before the shooting and was very proactive at securing the site ahead of the shooting and bringing in the law enforcement officers. We also have our Recreation Director, Greg Arda, who prior to the shooting, we have been coordinating park rangers to be on site and other safety measures to ensure that we could monitor the situation, and then the shooting happened. So I want to recognize the team's proactiveness to dealing with large scale events to ensure the safety not only of those individuals participating in that activity, but folks around the event. So
Thank you. There's a couple of questions directly related to that. I think there may be a couple of other questions just related to administrative reports. Jay Davis.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East, and that's why I'm saying Greenbelt East, because of this incident. Believe it or not, I was at the post office when this was all. I was on my way to the post office, and I just noticed all of the cars, ambulances, and the helicopter going ahead. And I thought it was something down by Good Luck Road, maybe by the 7-Eleven. And I began to realize that there must be something more, because when I finally got home, the Eleanor Roosevelt High School was just letting out at 4 o'clock. So that told me something really serious happened. And it's sad to think that when people now look at a list of mass shootings, Greenbelt will be listed. Basically, we had a mass shooting. Luckily, no one died. And I believe, as Mr. Roberts said, and this was brought up at the District 22 legislative meeting on Saturday, we've been dealing with juvenile reform and justice and so on. And maybe the next issue is, why is that such easy accessibility to guns, especially among teens, that is a major issue, along with mental health. So I'm glad to hear that. Well, I'm not, let's put it this way. I watched the police report, whatever the meeting was, press meeting. And when one of the reporters asked, well, do you have surveillance cameras there? And I thought we did. And when you had to say, no, we don't, I'm glad that you explained why, because I think a lot of people think we have cameras there, or that we should have cameras there, and that you'll work on doing that, because this is not going to be the only time that we're going to have, a large party get out of control or something like that. And where I believe that the shootings occurred was right in between the two buildings. So even if we had cameras there, we would have had something. We can't surveil the whole park, obviously. But if it's there, we can at least know that the crowd is gathering if there's a problem. I do want to commend everybody that showed up. I mean, when you started rattling off all of the agencies, the FBI, Maryland State Police, everybody came, Berwyn Heights and so on. That showed a lot of collaboration and cooperation, and I think that shows planning. Even if we couldn't quite be there right when it was desperately needed, we were able to coordinate and get things going. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please, ma'am. Yes.
Good evening. I'm Becky Steele from 3D Plateau Place. I just have two brief things. Was counseling made available to some kids who I would guess are suffering from what they've seen? And are people of religion or people of faith, adults that have talent with teenagers, are they connected somehow that they could be called in also in some of these situations? I don't know if they're practical questions, but
No, I think they're excellent questions, and I would think that the public schools would be in a better position to do that. Just in general, we really don't know the names and identities of most of the young people that were there. So logistically, that's kind of hard, but those are important things to do. So perhaps we can convey that through our school resource officer and talk to the principal over at Roosevelt to make sure that suggestion resonates.
Yeah, I was just going to say that often when there are any kind of tragedies or if a student's life is lost, the schools usually do provide counseling for anyone who is affected. So I can't recall if the letter that we were sent by the principal last week said that there was counseling available or not, but usually they do provide counseling.
Mr. Roberts?
Well, I think it's kind of sad, what I'm hearing tonight, because I hear this fixation on these cameras, as if cameras are going to fix anything. Oh, we got to have more cameras. Let's go out, buy some cameras. Cameras have proven themselves to be utterly ineffective. People go into 7-Elevens all the time and rob them with a camera staring right in their face. Cameras are not the answer. Stop wasting our money on things and start attacking the real problems that are creating this. There's too many guns, there's lack of enforcement of some laws, and I don't really think it's a mental issue. I think there was, bad blood between, different schools or something like that, probably that sparked this. And those issues have to be attacked on a completely different lane because cameras don't make any difference to them kids. You know, had there been cameras out there and they have 600 kids, how are you going to see anybody? How are you going to tell who's who or who's got a gun, who's shooting a gun, you know, with 600 or 1,000 people running around? Let's get off of the camera thing because that's not solving our problems, and stop using it as a crutch. That's what we're doing. Every time something happens, oh, we got to have them cameras. Forget the cameras and look at the real issues and do something about it. Otherwise, it's just going to be the same thing over and over and over. And that's what we're seeing in our country. The same thing over and
Someone
over and over.
Please, council member.
I just want to thank you for the question. This might be a good place to follow up with Gila and maybe some of our faith-based institutions. We had a work session with them earlier in this year, and there was the question around how do we build just better two-way communication. This might be a way to just reach out to them to learn what they might be doing individually. I know when the shooting did happen at Duval High School, that one of our churches in the community was called out to provide services to the students for that. So my gut is telling me that they're probably doing similar things. So it might be good to hear from them what they're doing so that we can share out maybe on future meetings or on our website or something like that.
Well, thank you. We have a question online.
Mr. Rudd, go ahead.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I echo a previous comment in that it takes a special breed of individual, even in law enforcement, whether it is the Secret Service, police, etc., to run in the face of bullets. So major positive commendations to our Greenbelt Police Department for doing that. The training works, everything works, and they're doing not only what they have to do, but what they volunteer to do and courageously run into for everyone's protection. Second, very briefly, yes, Senior Skip Day is a tradition going back to probably all of our lives and our parents' lives. At the same time, one of the trends that was noted in this is this coordination between schools, that everybody was going to do this together. School administrators have to be held accountable for not being on top of this and for not doing all they could to keep it within their own confines, whether it's a geographic confine, whether it's establishing carnivals, picnics, whatever, overnight stays to keep kids within a certain area and not have this kind of commingling, bad feelings, etc. Finally, just a commendation to Chief Bowers and to you, Mayor Jordan. Some was on television, some was on public access, some was on social media. What you said in your own ways really summed up the law enforcement and news agendas that were necessary for that day. And Mr. Mayor, what you said eloquently and briefly, particularly touched on the unity of the community and our outrage and despair over this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Hurling.
Just very quickly, following from what Council Member McKinney was talking about, another group that should be part of this effort would be Moms Demand Action. At this last legislative session, it was passed that it was legislation holding the manufacturers of guns responsible. And particularly in those cases where youngsters as well as adults can access through those manufacturers how to make the gun and so forth. And the state legislature passed it, and more than likely in early May, the governor will sign that legislation. So we can talk about how do you solve it, but one of the ways is to hold the gun manufacturers responsible for what they make possible in terms of the violence.
Yeah, and I would like to note that I did receive a call directly from Governor Moore on Friday afternoon asking if we needed any support, what could be done. And we did talk a bit just about gun violence. And so there are just too many guns, and it's too easy. In my personal opinion, it's the question, how does a 16 or 17-year-old get a hold of a handgun for their personal use? It's just, I don't know. Hey, but we really need to move on. So I did have another question as far as administrative reports, and I was just wondering, I know Mr. Varda is here. I'm wondering, when are we going to be able to break ground on the playground area at Spring Hill Lake? Have you had any luck in working with the vendors?
Yeah, so we met with the vendor last week. We're still working on the date. The problem is we almost need to start within the next couple weeks so we don't bump into summer camp, and we certainly have to have a playground for summer camp. So I think it's looking more like after Labor Day, just so we have we have a playground for camps this summer.
It's disappointing. I know you've been working really hard on this,
Right.
but it's very disappointing.
I will say, I think city manager sent out pictures today. The shade structures were installed or going in over at Greenbelt Station, and we're working on phase 2 concept plan right now. So we should have some drawings, and we've engaged NDC on the area along the creek.
And that is exciting news that those shades and structures at Greenbelt Station are finally going up. Yeah. Any other questions for the city manager? Please go ahead.
I actually did have a follow-up question. What is the limiting factor with the Spring Hill Lake or Rec Center playground?
It's getting all the equipment shipped in, plus we have to demo the basketball court. So there's actually 2 companies working together. So the company that does the basketball court also does tennis courts. And if you remember, it took us a long time to have that company finish our tennis courts because they're so backed up. So even though we probably will not be able to get it in before summer, scheduling it after Labor Day or early after summer camp ends, middle of August, we should be able to get that scheduled in the books, inked in, so we can start on a specific date.
I would love to be continually updated on the progress on that
Sure.
phase. Thank you.
And sort of on a broader note, in our contracting with the tennis courts, I became very frustrated. I was asking if there's some way with our contracts, if we can write in some sort of a clause to hold the contractor accountable for meeting a time frame. If they agree to a contract, there should be some accountability, for getting the job done in a timely fashion. So I don't know how we can go about doing that. Ms. McKinney?
And again, thank you for working through a lot of this. I know it is difficult, but I echo Ms. Niesel's questions and concern. I think a lot of people are expecting it to be open by the summer camp this year.
Right.
Can you just kind of walk us through? At this point, we are probably under contract, so we could not necessarily go to another vendor that could potentially move us further, because I do know on some of our other playgrounds that seems to be moving a lot more quickly than this one.
Another vendor we use is they're actually doing the Buddy Attic playground. They've been delayed as well. I think if we are under contract, but if we were to get out of it and start the process over, I don't think we could get it done before Labor Day. Like I said, we could probably start it sooner, but my concern is we would be without a play area, an outdoor play area in the middle of summer camp. So even if they could start this, say, next month, I'd have, it's probably a 2-month project, we'll probably have some weather interruptions. So we would go the bulk of, or at least half of the summer camp without a playground. And I can't have that. And I can't have construction going on during the summer too, with all the kids going around the center. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there other questions for the city manager? Okay, let's move on. Item number 11, Section 3 legislation. Item number 11 is a resolution to permit the concurrent membership or on multiple advisory boards, committee volunteers, and this is for second reading and adoption. I had requested staff to draw up a resolution that would actually permit some of our volunteers to serve on more than one advisory boards. These advisory boards, and three of them are named specifically, the Board of Appeals, the Employee Relations Board, and the Ethics Commission. They require specialized skills, and they are not meeting on a regular basis. So my thinking is we need to provide a little bit more flexibility so that in some cases, if someone is currently serving on an advisory board and has these specialized skills, that they be permitted to also serve on another board. And I'll go ahead and make this motion and read the resolution. It's Resolution 2110, a resolution for concurrent membership on advisory boards and committees. Whereas our organization recognizes the value of diverse perspectives and expertise from individuals who serve on both advisory boards and committees, and whereas advisory boards and committees play a crucial role in providing specialized knowledge, historical context, and recommendations to the City Council, and whereas some individuals are willing to continue to contribute their insights and specialized skills with taking full responsibility associated with board membership, and whereas the Board of Appeals, the Board of Employee Relations Board, and Ethics Commission meetings are typically infrequent, allowing board members the availability to serve on multiple boards simultaneously would be helpful. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Greenbelt, Maryland, that the City of Greenbelt permit individuals who are members of the Board of Appeals, Employee Relations Board, or Ethics Commission to serve concurrently on any one advisory board, one additional advisory board or committee. Could I have a second, please? Thank you. Discussion? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and I had a comment that I think you sort of, in your reading it, realized there was something missing there. I think that last phrase, that last "be it resolved" needs a slight amendment, because I think the idea is that it's to serve concurrently on any one other advisory board or committee, I would say, because I think that, that the idea is that one of these three that meet sporadically and any one other. So I would like to propose to change that slightly to make it clearer that we mean any one other, and make it or. So my proposal is that.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment. Ms. Niesel, will you also accept that as, okay. Is there additional discussion? I see Jay Davis has her hand up. Jay Davis, please.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. I do have a couple of questions and then a statement, if I'm allowed to do that.
Yes, please.
When I first read this, I thought that you were referring that anyone could have a membership in two boards or committees, and that's not what this is saying.
No, that's not what this is saying.
Because the title is misleading, if you think about it. So it's only these three members, Board of Appeals, Employee Relations Board, and the Ethics Commission, that you're allowing to join another board or committee if they wish.
That's correct.
So it's not reverse. You're not saying that someone from CRAB could then also be a member on the Ethics Commission, for instance.
No. It is reverse. Someone on another committee who's currently serving on another, concurrently is serving on another committee, could serve on one of these three boards.
That's not how the resolution is worded. Basically, it's saying that a member of the Board of Appeals, Employee Relations Board, and Ethics, because of the fact that they meet sporadically, could therefore also do their time at another committee or board.
Well, the title of the resolution does speak to that, a resolution for concurrent membership on advisory boards, but then in the body of the whereases, it stipulates that those three committees are the ones that meet infrequently.
Okay, so you are saying then that anyone on any committee could now become a member of another board or committee?
No, what I'm saying is anyone on any committee could also serve on the Board of Appeals, Employee Relations
All right,
Board,
so it's
or
a
Ethics
reverse.
Commission.
I understand. What is the reasoning behind this?
The reasoning is specialized skills are really needed for those three boards, and it's been difficult to actually recruit enough people to have the full contingent. And these three advisory boards are very, very important to the city. So that is the direct reason why this is being put forward.
Because when I first got on council, people were allowed to have membership in two
Several.
or three boards or committees. And what council decided back then is that we wanted to be sure that there was diversity in many areas among these boards and committees, and so that one group or one area of the city would not dominate because they could join as many as they wanted to. So I'm a little concerned that you're going to allow perhaps some lack of diversity. I mean, I understand why you're doing this, and I understand that there is difficulty at this point to get volunteers to do anything on a committee or a board. We're having problems with that. And maybe instead of relaxing the rules, you look into why are people not volunteering? Is it because of the time that the committee meets? Is it because we don't allow, the groups don't have Zoom, so they can't have Zoom meetings? There's transportation issues. And I think that that's more important is why are we, and basically the nation as a whole, finding it difficult for people to volunteer? And if we can solve those issues, then maybe we wouldn't have to worry about, okay, well, now we can allow you to be on two committees or boards because we have a lack of volunteerism. So I hope that this is not a slippery slope where we just allow people to, okay, someone is a live body, we'll just put them in a committee or board, and we won't care whether they come from one part of the city or whether they're a certain race or gender, that type of thing, which we've been trying to be very careful about doing. And it's difficult because we don't have a large enough pool to draw from sometimes when we have volunteers.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I would take issue with this creating a lack of diversity. It's more of a really direct response to a very direct situation where we do have volunteers on other committees that have the specialized skills and talents to actually serve in this capacity, but they're not interested in leaving the committees that they're on. So, you brought up some good points, but this is a very pragmatic resolution that I think will actually be helpful. And as you said many times, not just tonight, but in many other settings, it's very difficult to recruit volunteers. If I had the answer to that, I might be in a different position. Who knows? Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I guess for me, the thing that seems significant about these three committees is they don't meet regularly. So I think it's not a slippery slope because I think there's a very specific line between these three committees that only meet as needed. So somebody who's on these committees, we're not necessarily using their full potential to be on other committees if they're interested. And I guess to me, that seems to be the dividing line, that some of these, the Board of Appeals, Employee Relations Board, or Ethics Commission often may not meet for 6 months, but so having somebody on one of the other advisory boards or committees as well as that is utilizing the talent. So I think it's a fairly clear line for me. I do understand the point, and I actually have a suggestion for a change amendment. Yeah, so to the City of Greenbelt permits individuals to serve concurrently on the Board of Elections, Employee Relations Board, or Ethics Commission, and on any one other advisory board or committee. So that makes it clear, that it's not that they have to be on those three boards first, but it's allowing people who are on to serve on concurrently on those three committees that meet only sporadically, as well as one of the regular meeting. I think that language may be a little bit clearer than even my other amendment.
No, I think that's good language. I would accept that as, if you could send that language to Ms. Anderson, I would accept that as a friendly amendment. Ms. Niesel, would you? Okay. Mr. Roberts.
Well, I think that's a change that you would have to redo this whole thing and start over again. You can't just change it.
It's not changing the intent, it's just making it clear.
Okay, but I'll tell you what, I really think this is a bad way to go, because it's not going to solve the issue we have with getting volunteers on any board or committee. That's a separate issue, and I don't think that's going to do that. And it's setting up a special thing for a special group of people. You know, okay, you're special because you serve on this committee or that committee. Well, that's wrong. And it is, eventually, we're just going to allow you, this is going to lead to allowing anyone to be on multiple committees, which, you know, is definitely going to affect the diversity that we have on our boards and committees. And that's what we need the most, is different people with different opinions on all the committees. And just doing this is counterproductive. And you can phrase it any way you want it, but that's what you're doing. You're affecting the diversity of people that we have on the committees, and you're setting up special rules for special people. And I object to that strongly, and I'm not going to vote for it. Thank you.
Understood, and I hear what you're saying, but that's not the intent. That's not the way that we're actually. If I could
But
finish,
that is
sir.
going to
If
be
you don't
the
mind, if I could
result.
finish,
That's
I'd
the
appreciate
result.
it. So I think you're a little off base, but we have some other comments, and then I'd like to take it to a vote. Mr. Olens, please.
Thank you, Orleans again. I had asked recently and have failed to pick up the most recent list of members of our various boards and committees. From memory, it seems to me there are about 10 or 12 boards or committees, maybe 100 or a little more positions on those 10 or 12 boards or committees. One can't help but see in the news review every week that there are vacancies, and there have been for some time on several of them. My own view, however, is that it would be better to continue to have vacancies on them than to have council be able to appoint to more than one the same person. But just in the colloquy, an interesting question has come up. Former mayor and council and Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member Davis and current mayor alike wonder about why it is in a city of, 25,000 people, we can't find 100 people, or maybe a few more than 100, who really are interested in working on city affairs. I would like to think at some point council will devote some attention to that, how we can increase among our fellow residents a desire to participate in the affairs of the city. But I think this, frankly, is a terrible idea, and it would be better to continue to have vacancies than to allow council to appoint the same person to more than one.
Yeah, Mr. Olens, you brought up an interesting point, and there are people that actually roll up their sleeves and work on things, and they volunteer, and they actually serve on committees, and then there are other people that have opinions. So it's a tough situation, but I think it comes down to making sure that we are able to have a quorum. If one of these committees has to meet, we have to have enough people to ensure that we have a quorum. So I'd like to go ahead and take a vote. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. McKinney?
Yay.
Ms. Pompey?
Yes.
Ms. Niesel?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
No.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes,
The
that
motion
measure does
carries.
carry. Thank you. So this is a resolution. We would have a chance to sign this, then it would go into effect at some point in the near future. Next, we have item number 12 on here. And this is an ordinance of the Council of the City of Greenbelt, Maryland, authorizing the acquisition by negotiated purchase of certain real property known as Parcel 84, tax ID number 2397727, and that contains 22.09 acres at a purchase price of $196,000 plus incidental cost for a public purpose. And this is a resolution for first reading. Let me read the background information for this. NVR MS Cavalier Greenbelt LLC, owners of a 22.09 acre undeveloped parcel located immediately to the north of Greenbelt Station development, has offered to sell the property to the city at slightly below market value, $196,000. The property has significant sensitive environmental features. It's a floodplain, non-tidal wetland streams and tributaries and woodlands, and lies adjacent to the city-owned parkland and state-owned preservation land. In addition, the city currently holds an easement on the property to allow for the construction of the WMATA Trail, which will connect the Greenbelt Station community to the Greenbelt Metro Station, or which could connect the Greenbelt Station community to the Greenbelt Metro Station. The property is also the subject of a county-approved conceptual site plan and an annexation agreement that references Greenbelt Station Parkway extending north through the property to provide multimodal access to the Greenbelt Metro Station and associated mixed-use development. However, such right-of-way has not been platted. Staff believes it is in the city's best interest to purchase the property for public purposes. The property, which is zoned regional transit-oriented, low-intensity core, RTO-LC, has a high conservation and preservation value as the property is bisected by several creeks that make up portions of the headwaters of Indian Creek and has significant woodlands, non-tidal wetlands, and is contiguous to city and state-owned space. Purchasing the property will also best position the city to control all aspects of any future access through the property, including to construct and maintain a WMATA Trail on the property. So that does have a termination provision that would allow the grantor the right to terminate the easement if the city connection agreement with WMATA expires or is terminated. The city worked to receive two appraisals valuing the property at $200,000 and at $210,000. There is sufficient funding in the Greenbelt West Infrastructure Fund to fund the acquisition, and if approved by council, staff will prepare an ordinance appropriating funds from the Greenbelt West Infrastructure Fund balance to this acquisition. Funding this acquisition will not impact the city's ability to fund Greenbelt Station recreational amenities proposed in the FY 2025 budget, as staff is proposing to use program open space funds to cover 90% of the cost of these improvements. Would someone from council like to read the resolution into the record for first reading?
Actually, it's an ordinance. Actually, it's an ordinance.
It's an ordinance, I'm sorry. Yes. Will someone please read the ordinance into the record?
Whole thing?
Yeah.
So ordinance number to be determined. An ordinance of the Council of the City of Greenbelt, Maryland, authorizing the acquisition by negotiated purchase of certain real property, there's a typo there, known as Parcel 84, tax ID number 2397727, containing 22.09 acres at a purchase price of $196,000 plus incidental costs for a public purpose. Whereas the Council of the City of Greenbelt, Maryland, the city, pursuant to the authority conferred by Maryland Local Government Code, annotation section 5-204, legislative authority, general powers of municipalities, is empowered to acquire by conveyance or purchase any real or leasehold property for a public purpose, and whereas in section 3, powers of the charter of the City of Greenbelt authorizes the city council to acquire real, personal, or mixed property for any public purpose, and to acquire by conveyance, purchase, lease, condemnation, or other real, personal, or mixed property need for any public purpose in fee simple, lease, or leasehold interest or estate or any other interest or estate, and to hold to own, hold, manage, or control, and to sell, lease, exchange, transfer, assign, mortgage, pledge, or dispose of any such real, personal, or mixed property or any interest therein as the interest of the city may require. And whereas the city council deems it to be in the best interest of the city to acquire certain real property located within the city referred to as Parcel 84, Prince George's Tax Map 26, Grade A3, the property for missing in quotes for parkland, open space preservation and conservation purposes and any other public purposes as approved by the city council. And whereas the property has significant sensitive environmental features, floodplain, non-tidal wetlands, streams, and tributaries and woodlands, and lies adjacent to city-owned parkland and state-owned preservation lands. And whereas the city currently holds an easement on a portion of the property to construct a hiker-biker trail through said property to connect Greenbelt Station South Core to the Greenbelt Metro Station. And whereas there is a county-approved conceptual site plan and an annexation agreement that references Greenbelt Station Parkway extending north through the property to provide multimodal access to the Greenbelt Metro Station and associated mixed-use development. However, such right-of-way has not been platted. And whereas the property is presently owned by NVR MS Cavalier Greenbelt LLC, and whereas having received 2 appraisals, one valuing the property at $200,000 and one at $210,000, the city council deems the property to have substantial value to the city so as to justify the purpose of the property from NVR MS Cavalier Greenbelt LLC in the amount of $196,000. And whereas the city council desires to use the authority granted to the city and/or state law and the city charter to acquire the property pursuant to the terms of the contract of sale. Now, therefore, be it ordained and enacted by the council of the city of Greenbelt that the city council hereby authorizes for public purchase the acquisition of Parcel 84 by the city for the amount of $196,000, which is less than the appraised value, and authorizes the city manager to sign and execute documents that are necessary to effectuate the acquisition of the property per the terms of the purchase agreement.
Well, thank you very much. That was a mouthful. Good job, Mayor
technical
Pro Tem.
terms.
Fist bump. Boom. Yeah, so that'll be on the agenda at the next council meeting for discussion and council action. That will bring us to item number 13 under other business, Community Center Dance Studio Annex, Room 12, award of contract. This is Daiquin Reno prepared a memo on this on April 12th regarding flooring quote and the GMC flooring quote and the GHE electrical services quote. And Mr. Varda is here to brief us. I'll just read this information. Upon reviewing the community center space uses in 2022, it became evident that the Room 12 was being underutilized. Staff concluded that converting Room 12 into an additional dance studio annex would be the most suitable option given the popularity of the department's dance program. City Council previously approved the disbursement of $100,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds for the renovation of the dance studio annex. Staff recommends approval of the contract to CMG Flooring, the sole certified installer for the preferred flooring product from the Stage Step Flooring Solutions in the amount of $64,080.30. CMG Flooring will work with Thomas Commercial Services to complete the remaining component of the project. And there is an addendum. An additional $21,700 has been diverted to cover the costs associated with the installation of track lighting and HEPA filters in the community center spaces. Staff anticipates a remaining balance of $14,000 to $22,000 from the original $100,000 in reallocated American Rescue Plan Act funds. Mr. Varda, welcome.
Thanks, Council. Daiquin Reno is online, and she took the lead on this project. So if you could promote her, she could answer any questions for you.
Oh, excellent. Daiquin Reno, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Thank you so much, Mayor and
Welcome,
Council.
welcome. Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions you have about the Dance Studio Annex renovation.
Okay, well, just in terms of the, Miss Pompey, do you?
Yeah, I just had a question. I noticed that the studio is going to have to be kept at a certain temperature level, and I just wanted to make sure that we do have the capability to make sure that it'll be the correct climate and temperature to maintain the floor once it's in that annex.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had several meetings with Public Works in regard to that, and one of the concerns was the humidity level in that section of the building. So a dehumidifier is being installed in the building. that will work in conjunction with the temperature of the room with the HVAC unit to be sure that it maintains a proper temperature for the flooring, because that is quite important to make sure that the integrity of the floor stays the way it is for the proper use.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Tim?
Go ahead. I think Danielle has her hand up first.
Just a quick question. So the preferred flooring is the flooring that will be used, that will be sufficient for the safety of the dancers and the people in the building, not preferred to just maintain it long term. Is that correct? Like, we want to make sure what flooring we're putting in is actually appropriate for dance and activities. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The type of flooring that is put in is suitable for a variety of physical activities. So it's appropriate and safe for ballet, point, jazz, tap, barefoot dance, and it's specifically designed to be used in dance studios.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, my question was that it notes that the contract doesn't include repair or prep of the existing floor, as well as anything on the walls. And I just wondered, because I know that space was being used for something very different before. Is any of that work needed before the floor gets installed? And if so, how is that work going to get done?
Right. So to address the walls first, when the previous users moved out of that space, Public Works came in and did a significant amount of work to the walls. They actually had to sand all the walls down and prime them and repaint them. So they are in excellent condition now after it took them about a month to do that.
Wow.
So that work is already done. As far as the flooring goes, it's currently a tile floor, and they're actually putting the subfloor and the top floor on top of that. So there is absolutely no work that needs to be done to the flooring at all to prep for the construction.
Okay. Once again, an example of our multi-talented Public Works.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, I had just a couple of questions. One, just in terms of the award of the contract, this is a very specialized kind of a floor, so this is a sole source contracting choice?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and in terms of the operations of the community center, the timeline for actually installing this, and what impact will this installation have on the other operations of the community center?
It'll actually have no impact at all. Currently, the room is being used for some dance classes, but it's minimal just because of the type of flooring. So once this is on their schedule, which we are hopefully anticipating early summer, it won't have any impact at all. So we want to get it done as soon as possible. That way the room can be started. It can be used for the dance programs.
Okay, and you said specifically for the dance programs, but the floor can be used for many other things, like if one of our step teams needed a place to rehearse, that would be a place where they could do it, or what is the Brazilian martial arts? So there are other programs that you run, because we're running so many programs in the community center. Would those also be able to use that same room?
It's potential for that. We would just have to be assured that they're going to have the proper footwear. Because as with our dance studio, we don't want any street shoes worn on the dance floors. So as long as those groups abide by that and we know what kind of footwear they're using and the type of activity in the room, it certainly is a possibility.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. So let's go. Are we voting on this? Let's go ahead and. Oh, hold on for one moment, sir, please. Okay, Mr. Orleans.
Thank you, Bill Orleans again. Since I'm only reading from the publicly distributed agenda package, there's no details that I've seen about either CMG flooring nor Thomas Commercial Services, which will have to work with CMG Flooring, the sole certified installer for the preferred flooring product from, et cetera. There's no specific information that I can glean from this document that I have, whether CMG Flooring and or Thomas Commercial Services, but I don't really understand why they're necessary here, since CMG is the only certified installer of the preferred flooring product. But in any event, there's no information here as to whether CMG and also Thomas Commercial Services have agreed to adhere to the city's living wage policy. I understand if had I had the full package, I might have seen that, but I'm raising it because I haven't had a chance to see it, and I don't know if what I hope is now a default language in all our vendors' contracts stipulating such is there. So the question is that default language in the contract for both of these entities?
Mr. Summerall?
It's our practice to ensure that they're paying living wages. We'll connect with Greg and the contractor to make sure that that's being done.
If I could just interject, I did specifically ask that question to both contractors, and they both confirmed that, yes, that is true. They pay a living wage.
Okay, thank you. And just to be clear, to clear up any confusion, there were 2 attachments that were available by hyperlink on the agenda. So it's not as though the contract information is not there. It is there. If there's no further discussion, let's go ahead and take a vote. Let's see, I think because of the size of this, we should probably do a roll call vote. Let's just do a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please.
Ms. McKinney?
Yes.
Ms. Pompey?
Yes.
Ms. Niesel?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The motion carries. Ms. Quinn, when will they start this work? Will it be in May or June or July?
The last I spoke to them about 2 weeks ago, they had openings in June, so that's what we're hoping for, and I'll reach out to them tomorrow and see if that is still the case.
Very good. Thank you for your good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's going to take us, if I'm not mistaken, that's going to take us to council activities. Would anyone like to share any information on council activities?
Pull up the list as we have it, although I know I'm not sure everybody had a chance to put everything in. So I think we caught some of the things that, I'm not sure all council members had a chance to put everything in here, but this is what we had.
Anything you want to mention in particular? I was able to pop in on the gathering of the Girl Scouts out in front of the community center. I think it was World Knowledge Day.
World Thinking Day.
World Thinking Day. It was just an amazing gathering. There must have been at least 150, 200,
200 scouts.
close to 200 scouts. And that was the Washington district, but it's basically College Park. And well, are you a den mother, or what's the terminology?
I'm a co-leader for
co-leader.
Daisy Troop, which is kindergarten and first grade. And yes, this represented everyone in our service unit. So that is all of the Girl Scouts and their troops and families from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Realized I didn't get that one transferred over from the spreadsheet. It's on the spreadsheet, but I haven't gotten it transferred over yet.
That's pretty phenomenal. Just so much energy, and just hearing the presentations and hearing the young ladies talking about the different countries and what they were working on is great stuff.
Leadership in action. Our youth ran the entire thing. So the older Girl Scouts from about 15 to 18 ran the entire event, which I think is exactly what Girl Scouts is all about.
Okay, anyone want to mention any other specific activities you want to share with the public? Okay, well, it's a long night. We've covered a lot of ground, and we've got more ground to cover this evening because we do have to go into an executive session. So, I think,
Share a quick info item.
yes, please.
I just want to remind folks that there's a Prince George's County Public Schools Transportation Information Center being held at Eleanor Roosevelt on Saturday, the 27th, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So this will address the proposed bell changes, proposed bus changes, route consolidations. All of that will be addressed, and it's not just for Roosevelt families; it's for all PGCBS public school families. So I just want to make sure that folks are aware of that.
Yeah, I think they're having those discussions at most of the schools. Over at the Greenbelt Elementary School, I think they were having
They had a PTA
team meeting.
where they
Was that tonight, or was it?
that was last week.
Last week.
But they actually haven't. PGCPS hasn't actually released what the new times will be or what the new bus routes or schedules will be. That's actually not going to be released until the 25th. So although they've already had several of these info sessions, they have been in advance of any actual info being out there. So this will be probably, I believe, one of the first sessions where we should actually know what those new bell times are going to look like and what impacts our families here in Greenbelt are going to see from that. So
Very important, very important. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem?
Oh, just one thing I wanted to ask about, Cookies on the Bridge this Friday. I think Ms. Pompey said she was available. Is anyone else available on Friday? I
don't think I'm going to be able to do it this Friday.
I think I probably can if nobody else is. Okay, so Jenny and I are on for cookies.
great because I get to embarrass my son a little bit. It's kind of it's a highlight.
He usually sometimes he doesn't always take a cookie when we're out there. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to go into executive session. There is a question from the public or a comment. Mr. Orleans.
Thank you, Orleans still. I do have a question. Notices of going into closed session don't always read this way, but tonight it does. And there is a suggestion here, as I read it, that council will hold a closed session immediately following this council meeting to discuss public security if the public body determines that a public discussion would constitute a risk to public or to public security, including the development and implementation of emergency plans. I'd like to hear council engage in this determination whether going into closed session for this reason would constitute a risk to the public or public security. I'd like to hear that discussion.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to let you know that we've consulted with our attorney, and he's made the determination that going into closed session tonight with this language is an appropriate utilization of the Open Meetings Act. Did I say that correctly, Mr. Deloche?
Well, actually, it wasn't shared with me, the substance of the closed session. So if Mr. Samaran wants to engage with me, I can give an opinion.
Let the two of you consult briefly, but
Well,
we're not going to engage in
I
a
think
public
part of it is that that's the exact language of the statute. It says to discuss public security if the public body determines that public discussion would constitute a risk to the public or to public security, including. I mean, what's there is the exact wording from the statute. So it's to discuss public security if we determine it, and by going into closed
I
session.
am
we do it.
edified. All I'm asking is that this determination should be made in a public session, and I'm not hearing this determination that a closed session is necessary.
Well, that's an interesting point. It kind of seems like you want us to enter into a discussion about what we'll be talking about this evening, and we're not going to do that because, well, Mr. Samaran.
I would say that in my professional opinion, that discussing the security vulnerabilities that we intend to discuss would do just that the public discussion would constitute a risk to the public and public security.
Mr. Deloche, do you concur?
I think you can follow the lead of the city manager on the subject. You do not want to disclose what the discussion will be or even hint at it if it's going to be a public security risk.
Well, thank you. Other comments? Okay, well, let's go ahead. If you could read the language for closed session before we adjourn.
I move that council go into closed session in accordance with section 3-305B10 of the general provisions article of the annotated code of the public general laws of Maryland. 1, to discuss public security if the public body determines that public discussion would constitute a risk to the public or to public security, including the development and implementation of emergency plans. The purpose of this meeting will be to 1, to discuss public security if the public body determines the public discussion will constitute a risk to the public of public security, including the development and implementation of emergency plans. Chief Bowers, Deputy Chief White, Ms. Anderson, and City Manager Sal Marone will stay in the meeting in addition to council. Note that council will not return to open session following this closed session.
Thank you. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Councilmember Pompey has seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. McKinney?
Yes.
Ms. Pompey?
Yes.
Roberts?
No.
Ms. Niesel?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, it's 10:20 right now, so let's go into executive session. Thank you so much. I hereby adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye.